Okay, very good afternoon to all of you. So welcome to today's class of object-oriented concepts. So in the previous classes, we have studied about what actually is an exception and how to handle the exceptions by using try and catch blocks or try and catch clause. The code which we want to monitor for the errors will be placed within the try block, and if there are any issues within the try block, they will be handled by the corresponding catch block. This is what we have seen. Now in this class, let us see one more entity called nested try statements or nesting of a try statement within another try block. So that is called as nested try statement. So it is possible for us to include a try statement inside the block of another try. So whenever a try statement is entered, its context is pushed onto the stack. So we'll be placing the context of the try onto the stack, and if there are any errors within the inner try block, so they will be monitored for the corresponding catch block of the inner try block. Corresponding catch block of the inner try block. That means if an inner try statement does not have a catch handler for that particular exception, inner try is not having the catch handler for the particular exception, then the stack is unknown. That means pop the stack context from the stack, then the corresponding next try statement's catch will be examined. If inner try is not having the corresponding catch block, then look for the exception handler for the outer try catch. So this will go on repeating until one of the catch is going to match or one of the catch statement is going to satisfy the requirements. If it is possible that whenever you perform this matching, if none of the catch statements are able to handle this particular exception, that means if no catch statement matches the exceptions, then the default handler of the Java runtime system, that is the Java runtime system, will handle that particular exception. By default, it's going to handle. So that means what the nested try, how it works here is, I'll just try to take the syntax and I'll try to explain. So if you have written one try block, outer try block, then after some statements, that is there is one inner try block, end of inner try, then the catch block. This is catch for the inner try block. And after some more statements, this inner try is ending, inner try block is ending, then we have the catch block for the outer try. This is opening, we have written the catch block for the outer try, some statements for the catch block. Now what the nesting of try statements here is, whenever an inner try is being monitored for some errors, it is possible for us to include one try block within another try block. Now, whenever the inner try is being monitored for some exception, if there is some exception, the catch block of the corresponding inner try block will be examined. So if there is an exception here, if there is an exception here, examine the corresponding catch block. That is, try to match the exception of this particular catch block. If this particular inner catch is not having solution for that, then what we do here is we will go one step higher, then try to match with the outer catch block. That means try to match with the outer catch block. This is outer catch. I'll write it here. This is outer catch block, whereas this is inner catch block. If for this inner exception, if inner catch is not able to solve that, or if the inner catch is not matching, then we will look for one level higher and we will compare with the next outer catch or next catch statement of the outer try block. If it is matching, then this corresponding catch statement will be executed. This will be repeating until a match is found. If no catch is being matched, then what happens? Ultimately, the Java runtime system will handle the exception. That is default handler. What default handler will do? Default handler will just display the contents of the object and it will abruptly stop the execution of the program. It will stop execution of the program. This is how the nested try statement works, or nesting of try statement works. Now here in this program, we have written a try statement, that is try. This is outer try. Outer try has beginning, and I'll just try to show the closure of that outer try. So outer try is closing somewhere here, the redding, whatever I have shown. Now within the outer try, we have written one more try block. So where it is beginning? It is beginning here. That is inner try block is starting here, and inner try block is ending here. Inner try block is ending here, right? So let us these try statements will monitor for the errors, and there are possible types of errors, two types of errors what we monitor in this code, that is division by zero error and array index out of bound exception. Those two errors, and they are dependent, they are very much dependent on the number of command line arguments what we pass, number of command line arguments what we pass during the execution of the program. So assume if you have not passed any of the command line arguments, then what happens? The length of arguments will be 0, then value of a will be 0, and then we are going to produce division by 0 error. Why? Because command line arguments are 0, and if command line arguments are 0, then 42 divided by a, that is 42 divided by 0, is not defined. So what type of error we will produce here? The type of error being produced is division by 0 error, which is part of the outer try block only, and this outer try is having corresponding catch block. What is the corresponding catch block for the outer try? See here, for the outer try, the corresponding catch block, it can successfully handle the division by 0 error, no issue with that one. So this is the normal flow which works properly. Now assume that you have passed one command line argument. Assume that you have given one command line argument. In that case, what happens? The length of arguments will be 1. Value of a is 1, and this exception will not execute. That is 42 divided by 1 is allowed. Here there is not an issue. We will simply print the value of a. Block. So within inner try block, what is the value of a? A value of a is 1. So check, is the value of a is equal to 1? Yes, it is true. This is true. What we do? A equal to, what is value of a? A is 1. 1 divided by 1 minus 1, that is nothing but 1 divided by 0. So what we are trying to do here is, we are trying to perform division by 0 error. That means within an inner try block, there is an exception called division by 0. Whenever there is an exception within a try block, the corresponding catch block will be monitored, will be searched for the solution. For this inner try, what is the corresponding catch block? This is what is the corresponding catch block. This is what is the corresponding catch block for the inner try. But is this catch block is able to handle division by 0 error? No, it is not able to handle division by 0 error. But what type of error it can handle? It can handle array index out of bound exception. In that case, whenever the inner exception, we will go one level higher and check whether the outer catch is able to handle. What is the outer catch? Outer catch is able to handle division by 0 error, and that will be handled successfully. That is how the outer catch can handle the exception. That is how outer catch can handle the exception. So that was the scenario when single command line argument was passed. That was scenario when one command line argument was passed. Now let us see one more scenario when we are passing two command line arguments. When we are passing two command line arguments. Okay. Obviously, then when you are giving two command line arguments to the program, the argument length will be 2, value of a will be 2, and we perform this. That is 42 divided by a, that is valid arithmetic operation, and we'll simply print the value of a. We'll simply print the value of a, that is the number of command line arguments we'll print. It's not an issue. Now let us enter the nested try statement. Try to execute this statement. What is that? If a is equal to 1, no, this statement will not execute. Now we'll check the condition. If the value of a is equal to 2, yes, it is true. If it is true, what we do? Then we declare an array called C, which is having only one element called 1. Which is having only one element called 1. Now immediately in the next statement, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to access the index value 42. That means on up to here we are trying to access the index value 42, and there we are trying to store an value called 99, which is not possible, which is not allowed. So it is going to generate the array index out of bounds exception that can be easily solved by the inner try itself. That can be easily solved by the inner catch itself, because the exception is within the inner try. Whenever there is an exception, the corresponding inner catch will be examined. The inner catch is capable of handling array index out of bound exception, so it will be solved here immediately. So ultimate purpose of nested try is, if the inner catch is not able to solve the exception, then it will be searched with the outer catch. If none of the catch statements are able to handle the exception, then ultimately that exception will be handled by the Java runtime environment. That will be handled by the Java runtime environment. So the nested try, I'll just try to explain the program, demonstrate the program. Java C nested try.java. All right, compilation is successful. Java nested try. Right. So here we have not passed any of the command line arguments in the beginning. So obviously it is going to produce what type of error? Division by 0 error. Now what I will do, I will rerun the program once again. Now I will pass one command line argument. Any string you can pass here. Any string you can pass. That is st string you can pass. String 1. I have passed one command line argument. In that case also the code will produce division by 0 error. Why the code will produce division by 0 error? As I explained here, see here. A minus A, 1 minus 1 is 1 minus 1 is 0. Still it will produce division by 0 error. Now let us see by passing two command line arguments, that is string 1 space string 2. So two command line arguments are passed. Now in this case what it will produce, because it will escape the division by 0 error, but now it will produce array index out of bound exception, and it is an array index out of exception, and we are trying to access which particular index number 42, which is not existing. We're trying to access index number 42, which is not existing. So this is how the throw nested try statements will work. Next, let us see throw clause. So it is possible for a program to throw an exception explicitly. It is possible. So a program can throw an exception or an error on its own. So that the general form for that is throw and throwable instance. So this throwable instance is an object which will describe the type of error which has occurred. So usually we can obtain the throwable object by using two ways, either by parameter within a catch clause, which we'll be discussing now, or by creating the new exception, or by creating the new object by using the new operator. Right? So whenever a program throws an exception, the program execution will stop immediately. After the throw, the program execution will stop immediately, and the subsequent statements are examined. Subsequent statements will not execute, and the catch statements are examined. The nearest catch statements will be examined, because one exception has occurred. One exception is thrown by the program, and you have to search for the solution. You have to search for the corresponding catch statement. If the corresponding catch statement is available, then that exception is solved. Else, the program execution will stop abruptly. That means we should write the solution for the throw. That is, the throw must be solved, and the exception, once it is thrown by the method, it must be solved by the corresponding program, corresponding catch block. So I'll take this example program, the things will be clear. Yes. See, as we know, whenever an exception is created, an object representing the exception will be created, that will be thrown back or sent back to the method which has caused the exception. The method is responsible to handle that particular exception. So let us say these are the statements, methods. So we'll start the program execution as well from the main function. So within the main function, what we're trying to do here is within the try block, that means where we are monitoring the code now, we are monitoring the code called a demo process. Demo process is a method which is being called now. Now the control will get transferred from here to definition of the demo process. Now within the demo process, again within the try block, here an exclusive exception is being created. Throw an exception by creating a new exception. What type of exception we are throwing? The method is trying to throw null pointer exception and it is taking one parameter called demo. So it is creating one new exception. It is throwing one new exception, which where it is throwing, it is part of the demo process. Nothing but whenever we are trying to execute this method, there is an exception called null pointer exception, and that one string is being passed to the method. Now, when there is a exception within this try block, it will be solved or it must be addressed by this particular catch block. What is the catch block? Yes, this is what is the catch block. Yes, this is what is a corresponding catch block for that exception. Once the exception is thrown, this is what is the corresponding catch block. Now, what is happening in the corresponding catch block? In the corresponding catch, it will receive the object. What is that object? Object is demo. That demo will be received within the object within the parameter e. Then what will be printed? Simply caught inside a demo process, a statement will be printed. So what output we are getting now? Caught inside demo process. We are getting caught inside demo process. Then the exception is again being thrown, that is rethrow the exception. Just you are monitoring how the flow of exceptions will work. That is what actually happens whenever the exception is thrown once again. That is rethrow the same exception. Which exception? This demo exception. We are just trying to rethrow it. Can you hear my voice? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible to you? Can someone respond? Because I'm facing network issues.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible to you now? There was a network issue. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. So today there is a network issue. Okay, I'll just continue. When we throw the exception once again, that particular exception, it must be caught by the corresponding method. It will be thrown to that method. Now remember which method we are executing. We are executing the method called demo process here. We are within the body of the method called demo process. We are within the body of the method called demo process. That means whenever we throw an exception, that will be thrown within the same method itself. That means there is a problem with this particular method. That means it should be, what is the catch for this corresponding method? The catch for this corresponding method is this one. That means this exception will be thrown and that will be handled by this particular catch block, this particular catch block. So what happens now? Record colon and details of that exception, whatever exception has occurred. That is null pointer exception will be displayed. Now I'll just try to give the demonstration. That is throw demo.
The screen is not visible, sir.
Screen is not visible. I have shared it. Once again, I'll stop sharing and share it once again. Would you just let me know once it is visible? Yes, is it visible now? Screen? I have shared it.
Yes, sir.
Now you can see, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think I have to repeat this part, whatever I told. The small part I'll repeat. On the screen was not shown. Whenever we rethrow the exception here, that must be caught by the corresponding catch block. This particular catch block. Why? Because the error has occurred within this method. So this must be caught by this particular catch block. And what it will print? It will print the message saying that record and whatever is detail of that particular exception. So these are the two lines of the output what will be produced. I'll just give the demo, that is Java C. Throw demo.java. Okay. Throw demo. As you can see, caught inside a demo process. The first output what we got here is it will print as it is caught inside demo process, because now whenever you are executing this method, first exception will take place here. So what statement will get printed? Caught inside demo process. Later it will rethrow the exception back to this, then record statement will be printed. That is, the output is caught inside demo process, record, and this is the detail of the exception. What is that detail? Null pointer exception has occurred. Null pointer exception has occurred.